everybody. Today we're going to make mixed media gift tags using napkins. The napkin I'm using is called Winter Animals and it's absolutely adorable. Here it is, and you get 8 different animals times 2. I've cut them into squares just for ease, and you can see all 8 animals. I'm going to make 8 tags, but you can make 16. Now the size of this works perfectly for an ATC, which is 2.5 by 3.5 measurement. You could use this size on a 3 by 6-ish tag as well. It would work on a 4 by 4 canvas or canvas board. Works great on these mini composition books. And you can make a mini zine with it. I chose to do this on watercolor paper. So I've cut the watercolor paper ATC size 2.5 by 3.5. So the first step after cutting apart these animals is to remove the double ply of excess napkin. We won't be needing those. You always need to remove them before you decoupage them on. Now these I can save and they will add wonderful texture to a future project. Now I want to cut off the excess and I'm going to water cut using my liner brush. I'm just going to edit whatever I don't want. This is a fairly small mixed media make, so I'm going to get rid of a lot of excess because there's just not going to be much room for too much. And I'm kind of going to be doing this assembly line. So I peel off all the plies, then I do all the water cutting, then I'm going to do all the gluing. And definitely you could do this in stages. Prep all the napkin ahead of time, then start with the pages on another create time. Now, these napkins have holly and they read like Christmas or winter. But if you cut those off, you could use this for any time of the year. And here I'm cutting off some of that holly because I want to put it on, there's none on the penguin, there's none on the polar bear, and I want to have that motif on all of them because I'm using this as a Christmas gift tag. So I want that little bit of holly. Alternatively, I could get some stenciling or a printable or a stamp and add that. So there are other ways to get it. I love these two. I think these two are my favorite animals of the bunch. Now I'm grabbing my fluid matte medium and I'm going to glue them down, glue the napkin onto the watercolor paper. Now I've chosen to do watercolor paper because I am going to use a watercolor-like medium or color medium. We'll talk more about that later. Now I'm going to make a cutting template for the tag. So I used an actual shipping tag and I cut the corners of a gift card, old credit card, and then I just have to line up the two sides, the top and the side, and then I can cut with scissors and have that perfect corner angle. Now, when I cut this, I realized that I didn't like the scale of it. I needed to make it a little bit of a longer cut, a wider cut. I'm not sure exactly what word would describe it. So I just cut the corner of the card, just freehanded it. Then I can put it on this side, cut the angle, and instead of cutting on the other side trying to match, all I have to do is flip over the card like you just saw me doing there, line up the edges, and cut it. Now I'm cutting with scissors, but you can put it on a cutting mat and use an X-Acto knife to cut if that's your preferred way of doing it. So cut one corner, flip the card over, line up the top and the side, and cut. And now I have a template for a tag, and I can just keep those in the basket nearby my workstation. The thickness of the key card or gift card is great. So now that all the corners are cut for the tags, I am just drawing in where I want to hole punch. Then I'm going to grab my hole punch and cut. And I apologize that's off camera, but you know what I'm doing. So now that all the tags are ready to go, I am going to just figure out where exactly I want all my winter animals to sit. You can put them higher, you can put them lower. I do know that I want to stamp a short word sentiment on each one, so I'm just making sure that I have an open space to do that. There I'm cutting off some of that holly so I can put it on the polar bear. Remember, you can edit the napkin and use it however you want to. I'm continuing to edit some of the parts out that I don't particularly like or don't want for my purposes here. Now that I have an idea about where everything is going to go, I grab my fluid matte medium and I put a coat, and I'm covering the whole card, not just where the napkin goes. The reason for this is when I put the color medium on, I want it to take the same no matter where on the card it is. And if I just put some of that matte medium, the paint would take differently than where if I had none. So I'm just giving it a good coat. And I'm making sure that the top part of the napkin has a coat as well. In case I make a mistake with the color medium, I'll be able to clean it up. So again, I'm working assembly line. I got my matte medium out and I'm just gluing everything down and then setting it aside to dry. And when you work in assembly line like that, you actually save time. You save time on cleanup. There, I just layered that holly on top of the polar bear to make my own combo. And one by one, there we go. We're back fully in screen. These animals, they're just so cute and adorable. They would look good. You can buy wooden tags and you can decoupage that on and they can become Christmas ornaments if you like. There's so much you can do. And with this napkin, you get 16 images. Now that it's completely dry, I'm turning it over and I'm cutting off the excess. And it's important to do this before the end because it's distracting to the eye. These look great even with the white background, but I am going to color it and I'm going to use NeoColor IIs. Now NeoColor IIs are water soluble crayons. They look like wax crayons, but they're highly pigmented and they are wonderful. They're water activated and they are not permanent, which is important because you do not want to put wet on them once you have them where you want them, because it will move and smear. Here I put two colors of blue on and I am activating it right on top of the watercolor paper. And do you see the halo that's around the bear's head? I'm tapping some gesso there to blend out that edge. And then I go back to all my cards and I do the same ahead at first, because I don't want you to be able to see that. So I put a coat of gesso on the card so that everything again goes smoothly. That was one thing, because I don't often use watercolor paper and I haven't used these NeoColors for a long time. But they are a wonderful product. The nice part is, because they reactivate, if you don't like something, you can add water, pretty much get it all off and start from scratch. You can remove it. If I got a whole bunch of that blue on, say, on top of the white polar bear, because there's matte medium on it, I can get it all off. So here I'm just adding the gesso to smudge out those edges, to blend those raw edges where the napkin meets the watercolor paper. And that's going to help me avoid getting that halo that we saw with the polar bear. Adding the gesso on the rest of the card is also going to add some texture to your background. And because this is a small area, I'm not going to be doing much in the way of detailing or stamping or stenciling on this. In fact, I'm not doing any stamping and stenciling. The texture that we're going to see, the interest that we're going to see, is going to come from mixing one or two colors, the gesso application that you're seeing me doing right now, and two techniques that we're going to be using with the NeoColor IIs. So here I'm taking this color, I'm just having fun playing with a supply that I haven't used a lot of. And, I definitely need to use it more. You can use distress crayons the same way, watercolor paints the same way. Here I'm adding blue. And of course, color theory tells you if you add blue and yellow, you're going to make green. So I want some of that. And I'm just activating it. And you can see it becomes fully activated with the brush. You just keep working it. I love this one. The penguin one in the end is my favorite. I love the colors, the blending, the green, the look with the penguins. If this I would hope I wish there was a napkin that was larger, that was just the penguins. I'll have to ask Nicole. And if you want deeper color, you just grab your NeoColor 2 and add on. Now there are NeoColor 1s and NeoColor 2s. This is a NeoColor 2 and that's important. I'm adding more, building up depth of color here. And I'm grabbing some kosher salt and putting it on. This is the salt technique, and it's going to add some interesting patterning and texture to my background. So that's one of the techniques that you can do. And you can do that with acrylic paint, but any water soluble product, watercolor paint, the NeoColor IIs, distress crayons, it will work with all of them too. So here I've mixed purple and a blue, just activating it all, blending some, leaving it some not, and I'm just playing with the colors. I just want to build some variation into the tags. And I'm adding salt again. That needs to completely dry. You can use a heat tool, but I prefer to let it dry naturally. I think it gives a better effect. So I'm using blue and yellow on this one because I like that color combo. When you find something you like, do it again. And you have to use a little bit of color theory. If you mix colors that, like the purple and the blue, they're close to each other on the color wheel, they're not going to make mud. I know that blue and yellow are going to make green. Red and yellow would make orange. Use your basic color sense, color theory to guide your decision. And worst case scenario, you end up making a color you don't like, you can grab a baby wipe, wipe it off, and start over. For instance, I wouldn't want to mix purple and orange. That would make a brown that I don't want. But maybe it's a color you do. So here I took some saran wrap and I'm pressing it in, and then I'm going to set that aside to dry. And that's going to give kind of a broken glass effect, texture, pattern to the background. And then I'm adding a darker blue. I just like when I use my acrylic paints. Now you could use acrylic paints to paint out the background as well. I still would do the gesso piece first and then mix the acrylic paints. There I'm adding a little bit more orange and red to the birds just to make that color pop. But these are Christmas tags, so I didn't want to spend a lot of time doing them. And some of the time that it took me to do the video was time because I was figuring it out as I was going. And I know that this looks like I'm scribbling, and basically I am. I'm not being precise. You can move the pigment around. Once it's activated, you can move it around as you wish. I didn't want it down there. I thought I'm going to keep that as snow, so you just saw me remove it. And then I'll come back and I'll paint some white gesso on there to make it look like a snowbank. Adding more pigment and some salt this time. So I'm not doing any stamping or stenciling on the background. It's a very small space, but I do want to add some interest and texture. And the salt technique and the plastic wrap technique are two great ways of doing that in a very quick, easy way. Here I've added blue with green. And I love how the variation that you get. You use a little bit more blue, you lose a little bit more green. Look at that lovely texture. So now I'm taking that saran wrap and I'm putting it down After I did wipe it dry, so there weren't blotches on. And then I'm giving that a dry after I remove the plastic wrap so it doesn't all run back in. I love that texture, that broken glass kind of look. Now the salt, I'm just giving it a little bit of extra help here with the heat tool, just for the sake of the video. Normally I would let this dry naturally, and then you just rub it. Don't rub it when it's hot from the heat tool. You could burn yourself. And there you have the texture that goes with that. Just rub it off. And then that salt goes into the garbage. If you use just regular table salt, you'll get a different effect. If you use different salts, will give you different effects. So use what you have. There's another plastic wrap. I had such fun making these. Here I have the blue and I decided I need a little bit more interest, so I'm adding more color. And the great thing is whatever color you already have there, once you add water to it again, you've reactivated it. So you can mix and match. And because it's watercolor paper, it's going to hold up to wet medium. And here we go. We're going to put the saran wrap on there because I'm liking that look. These are my least favorite animals. To me, when I look at it, I think it's a skunk. I don't think it is, but here I'm mixing the yellow and red. So wherever it mixes, it's going to have orange. And you want it a little bit wet to get the proper effect with the salt technique. What the salt does is it just absorbs the liquid and pulls it around it. There's the saran wrap technique. I got some blue on the bird. I can just take water on a brush and just gently rub, just like I'm doing here. I like how the blue really pops with the red on the birds. So now I want to edge them, and I'm using the Ranger blending foam. I have put this on a wooden spool, and I'm using archival ink. And you can see the ones that I've done versus the ones I haven't done, what a difference that makes to edge it. It just finishes it off. Like I said, if you don't want to spend this time to make tags, you can put this on a 4x4 canvas, a mini composition book, ATCs, Happy Mail, any kind of mini make, or you can make a mini zine, which was kind of where I was going, and then I took a detour, I guess. And you can see the top and the bottom, the difference. So now I'm taking some black paint on my gel plate, my 5x7 gel plate, and I'm going to stamp sentiments onto these tags. Simple one-word sentiments. So the first word is joy, and I'm going to do 3 with joy. So I'm going to, again, do the assembly line. So I press it onto the gel plate and then stamp it in an open space. And then I'm going to stamp it again. And once I've put all 3 J's on, I'm going to wipe off the acrylic paint off of the stamp with a baby wipe. Now, I don't attempt to get perfect stamping when I do my letters. I don't try to get it perfectly straight. Now, where I got some black where I didn't want it. Now, even though it's water soluble underneath, if you just kind of tap, tap, tap without rubbing, you can get that off, that black acrylic paint off without affecting the background. But you really have to be careful that you don't rub. So there are the three with joy. I'm looking at the size that I have opened, so now I'm going to put love. And I'm getting dap off some excess, a smudge there. These would also work on a card, and you can combine. You could have two sets of animals on a card if you want, and make a whole winter scene if that's what you wish. Remember, I mean, you can decide whatever composition you want. I love that penguin one. And the last one I'm going to put peace. So I picked the ones that had the most space. And just one by one. And getting rid of a mess. The black edging goes really well with the black stamping. So I have a to and from stamp, so I am going to stamp that on the background because these are going to be used as gift tags. Now, if you don't have this particular napkin, you can look through your napkins and look for some that have smaller focal images or use part of a bigger one. You could also turn these into make them a little longer and make bookmarks. I want to make them a little bit fancier, so I'm going to splatter gold paint on them. You can leave the backs plain like I did, or you could splatter paint using some of the same colors that are on the front if you really wanted to. I chose not to. Then I grab my Posca pen and I just outline it. It just finishes it off and frames it. So these look amazing, but they're very easy to make. I hope you give this or something like this a try. Until next time, go get creative.